there's so many women at every stage of life that they come to this place where it's like, oh my goodness, I have not been living in alignment with who I truly am. And there's so many points in time where we have to stop and realize, oh, wait a minute. I'm not speaking my truth, or there's parts of myself that I've been hiding from the world because of something that happened in my past or in my childhood. And so I think it's really beautiful and it resonates deeply with me that there are so many parallels in our story. Because I think sometimes I feel like we get to a certain age and we're like, oh, okay, the work is over, or we've done the healing, right? And it's over. But that's not the case. We're always on this beautiful journey of evolution.
Hello and welcome. Kate Champion here, your host. This is going to be a short intro today. I'm going to start with a question. What if finding your voice isn't so much about age, but it's more about courage? Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Sophia Graniela, for an inspiring intergenerational conversation about hope, healing, sobriety, and finding your way back to yourself. With Sophia in her 30s and me in my 60s, we have so much fun sharing our experiences and insights on rediscovering and redefining our voice, and in turn, creating lives that feel truly aligned at any age. You know, I really believe that authenticity, being true to yourself and true to your voice, is one of the cornerstones of living a longer, stronger, more intentional life. So I'm very excited to be able to share this conversation with you today. Join me in welcoming Sophia to the show. Enjoy! Good morning. We have Sophia Graniela on the show this morning, and I'm so excited. I just have a feeling that we're going to take you guys on a great journey today. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Sophia. I do want to always start with just inviting people just to take a breath, just like just settle into the space and create this container, which I think is so important. So thank you for that. So tell us, Sophia, a little bit about you and your journey and how you're doing what you're doing today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Kate. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. And I'll take you all the way back to childhood first, because that's where everything starts. And I was born and raised in a little town in upstate New York. I was raised in a family of alcoholism. And so from a young age, there was quite a lot of, I guess we can call it chaos and instability. And when I was going to school, there was a lot of bullying that was taking place as well. So I always felt like it wasn't safe to be me. And I was a little girl with big emotions. I loved to create. I was an entrepreneur straight out of the womb. I just had such a big, bold imagination. But as the bullying took place and as things started to shift, I slowly but surely started to hide parts of myself. My quirks and my weirdness and my goofiness all started to go offline. And when I was 15 years old, I started experimenting with alcohol and substances. And from 15 until 29 years old, I went on a very long journey of getting caught in cycles of substance abuse, abusive and toxic relationships. But during that time, still very much throwing myself into work and trying to prove my worth through productivity. And it was just a really endless cycle of self abandonment. And finally, at 29 years old, after a really deep heartbreak, I remember looking in the mirror and I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. And it was just a really huge awakening of, oh my gosh, I have been abandoning myself this entire time. And I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I enjoy. I don't know any hobbies outside of drinking. And it just felt really isolating. But it was in that moment that I was ready to make a change because staying where I was actually scarier than the unknown of where I was going. And so it was in that moment I made a decision. I'm going to change my life. I don't know how, I don't know the details, but I have to get myself out of this place. And so at 30 years old, about 6 months after that, I decided to get sober and everything in my life began to radically shift. I had to let go of this old identity I'd been clinging to. So I lost, friendships and I had to get myself out of certain environments. But after the first probably 6 months to a year, all the beautiful things started to happen. I started to reclaim my voice. I started speaking. I started sharing my story online. I started to meet people that were so much more in alignment with the woman I was stepping into. I started to rediscover parts of myself, my weirdness, my quirks, like they all started to come back online. I discovered EFT tapping, and I'm now an EFT tapping practitioner. And I just started coming home to myself, which is why my brand is Her Journey Home. So that is how I've gotten to where I am today. It's been a challenging but very, very beautiful journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing. And as I'm listening,
Yeah.
I'm just struck, right, by the parallels. I'm going to talk about age, right? I'm kind of in my early 60s. I believe you're in your early 30s. And
Yeah.
what I'm hearing here are some, I work with women too. I'm a therapist, right? So I work with women in
Mhm.
kind of midlife, etc. And what I'm hearing are some really powerful parallels around self-abandonment. And I think,
Mhm.
that's a big one. Finding or reclaiming our voices. I think I hear that you went through that. And I think as I reflect, probably something similar in my, 20s and 30s.
Mhm.
And then again, right, I'm seeing people, women in their, 50s and 60s going through this process again of who am I? What is my identity? What's really important? How can I begin to reclaim or even find and discover who I am again? So
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of have a little, maybe a little intergenerational conversation about
Yeah.
growth and discovery and refinding voice at any age. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
As
such
I
a through line with so many women.
Okay, so as I share that, is that resonating? What are your thoughts and feelings? I'd love to hear your comments on that.
Absolutely. I think that there's so many women at every stage of life that they come to this place where it's like, "Oh my goodness, I have not been living in alignment with who I truly am." And I don't think you can put an age on this, right? Like you said, you're in your early 60s, I'm in my early 30s. And so we're at very different stages of our lives, but we're still growing and evolving. And there's so many points in time where we have to stop and realize, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm not speaking my truth," or there's parts of myself that I've been hiding from the world because of something that happened in my past or in my childhood. And so I think it's really beautiful and it resonates deeply with me that there are so many parallels in our story because I think sometimes I feel like we get to a certain age and we're like, "Oh, okay, the work is over," or "We've done the healing," right?
Mhm.
And it's over. But that's not the case. We're always on this beautiful journey of evolution. And I think it's really important to recognize no matter what stage you're at, if you have a burning desire on your heart, or if you have something you want to do or share with the world, you can do that. And it's giving yourself that big permission slip of, I can share this. But it's also getting to a place where you feel safe enough to do so as well.
So how was that for you? How did you eventually start to feel safe again? And I hear obviously sometimes there's blocks and messages from childhood, but sometimes it's just culture, right? Sometimes it's just culture that gives us these messages. You have to be quiet or you have to be small. You don't, don't rock the boat, whatever it is, right? Again, especially for women. So how did you
Mhm.
start to kind of work through some of those blocks and find and rediscover your voice? Because again, I think that's so critical.
Absolutely. I love this question because truthfully, it wasn't always easy. I grew up, as I mentioned, I was bullied a lot, and I was always told in relationships I was too much, too emotional, too intense. And so I learned that those parts of myself were not safe to express. And so for most of my life, I swallowed my words and I tried to keep the peace and I wanted to be agreeable so that people would like me and accept me. And then, of course, there's that piece, and then there's also the cultural piece that you mentioned. So there's a lot of the, women shouldn't take up that much space. They should be quiet, they should be polite. And so we take that on and we learn to shrink ourselves. And so once I got sober, I started to realize how much of myself I was shrinking. And I realized how much of myself I was hiding to be accepted by people who could never actually truly see me for who I was. And so I little by little started to speak up in group settings. So I learned to raise my hand instead of staying in the background and listening to everyone else speak. I started to raise my hand at community events so that I could be witnessed and seen by more than one person. I started to share more vulnerably with people that I felt really safe with. So, again, like a therapist, a coach, friends, family that I knew wouldn't judge me if I shared something deeper. And then I started to share on social media, which was like a whole nother layer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to share on Instagram stories because they disappear in 24 hours, but I can at least be seen by even more people. Right. And so once I felt comfortable with that, then I started doing face to camera videos and then I started going live and then I launched my podcast. And so it was like this incremental, beautiful journey of little by little showing my nervous system that a lion wasn't chasing me and that it's actually okay to be seen and heard. And it's been a gradual process. So that's what I would say. It's not just something, I decided and then I just changed. Little by little, I just gradually showed myself, okay, I can be witnessed, I can be seen.
Yeah, I love that. Again, so much is resonating with me. I had some stuff
Ugh.
around the shrinking, the being small. Like I had that, childhood culture, all the rest of it.
Yes.
Right? It's like be seen and not heard, and all the rest of it. So
Hmm.
actually, this is the title of my podcast. Like, living big isn't all about being big and bold and brash and all the rest of it, larger than life, right? It is literally about living to your own full potential, right? It's about having your own voice. It's like you said, it's like all parts are welcome, all parts of myself can be seen. And I really want,
Yes.
I mean, and that takes so much intentionality, right?
Yeah, it
Really
really
having,
does.
you have to intentionally go to that meeting or put your hand up and say, well, that's not exactly what I was thinking, right? Even that takes so much courage,
Ooh.
intentionality. So I'm curious if you could tell us a story, maybe of the first one of the first times where you're rolling up for that meeting, maybe, and you were like, ah, your knees are knocking, you're kind of terrified, you got that, the butterflies and the anxiety in your body, but you did it anyway. So tell me about a story where that was really profound.
Yeah, the one that sticks out immediately in my mind, I was actually in a shadow work certification program, and it was our all weekend intensive. So it was 3 days in a row. And in past programs, I had, like I said before, kind of stayed in the background. I took in as much information as I could, but I would never be someone to raise my hand to share something very vulnerable. And I remember that weekend making a commitment to myself that this time was going to be different. I was going to share more of my story. I was going to raise my hand and I would go first. And I remember when my instructor asked for someone to share an experience from their childhood. And I was sweating and my face was all red and my knees were shaking. I was just so scared. I was like, oh my goodness, but I already made a commitment. I'm going to do this. So I raised my hand shaking and I said, okay, I'm really nervous. I acknowledged that I was nervous. And I shared this experience with my father growing up. And it was so profound because after I did that, everyone came into the chat and they were like, "Thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability. You gave me the courage to then share something." And it was like this ripple effect, giving other women permission to then use their voice. And that's kind of when I had that moment in my brain that was like, "Wait a minute. If I have the courage to go first, other women will then have the courage to realize that their voice matters." And that's really what started everything else in my journey because I started to speak up and I started to share and I started to be more vulnerable. And not just online, but I started to be more vulnerable in my own relationships. And it was just this beautiful ripple effect in my life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for
Mm,
sharing. I'm just
yeah.
wondering if you kind of took a breath now. I'm curious about, how you're feeling, what's coming up in the body. I'm just a little curious about how you're feeling as you share
Mm.
that, reshare
Oh
that.
my gosh. Yes. It's it's beautiful.
Yeah, I can almost feel the courage, right? I can almost feel
Yeah.
that. And then the awareness, or not even the awareness, right? This the light bulb goes on, like that this is okay. Yes, this was scary and it was okay, right? Yes, this was scary and wow, right? These things can kind of
Yeah.
coexist, which I think is just so beautiful.
It really is, and I feel like the way that I feel in my body now versus then is so different. Like,
Mm,
now when I share, it's like this life force energy pulses through me, and it's like this excitement because I get to share. Whereas before, it was almost like this constriction of like, "Oh my gosh, what if someone judges me? Or what if I'm perceived in a certain way?" And now it's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to share." So it really shifts.
yeah. So I'm curious, and thank you so much for talking about the somatic piece, the body piece. And I think you're
Mhm.
so right, right? I mean, again, the nervous system holds on to so much of that, right? Again, the living small, the clenching, the kind of curling in,
Mhm.
So have you noticed a kind of an opening, right? Your body has opened
Mhm.
up, it's lighter, there's more space, there's more energy. What about the thoughts? Have you noticed that your thinking has changed? I'm curious about the thought climate through this journey for you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It has shifted massively. I used to be the biggest overthinker, especially when I was drinking. It was like my thoughts would quite literally consume me. And I would have this anxiety all the time, especially after the day after drinking of, oh my gosh, did I say something wrong? Did I upset someone? And it was just this downward spiral of getting into the darkness in my mind. And getting sober and starting to use my voice and building more confidence, there are still moments when the overthinking comes up. We're humans, right? We're all going to be there. But now I'm aware that I'm a conscious being and my mind is there to think and to protect me, but I can actually disconnect from those thoughts and I can be more present in my body. And so when I start to be consumed by overthinking, I get back into my tapping, I do a meditation, I go on a walk, and I just realize, okay, I am not my thoughts. So it's okay. This doesn't mean this is who I am. And I'm a human and I give myself grace and compassion for those moments when the overthinking starts to happen. But I really now can recognize like my thoughts are not me. Whereas in the past, I really identified with my thoughts. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm this person. And it would just completely consume me. So I would say there's a very, very big shift with that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And as I'm listening, I'm also hearing a lot of kind of self-compassion. I'm not hearing a lot of kind of like that critical voice or that shaming
Mm,
voice that can come in with or without addiction. I think addiction
yeah.
can definitely add gas to that fire for
Yeah.
sure. So is that something else that you've worked on, is to really kind of be kind to yourself internally? And how have you done that?
Oh, so many things. Oh my goodness. A lot of inner child work. So, a lot of reparenting and just sitting with that little girl who was told that she was too much. And I just will sit there and I'll give myself a big hug and I'll just talk to her. And I try to carve out time out of my day every single day to sit with her. And so that's been a really, really big piece of it because I was critical of myself for 30 years, basically my entire life. And I would say that was a big piece of it. Also, mirror work. So, looking at myself eye to eye in the mirror, speaking kind words to myself. And people say, affirmations aren't that effective sometimes. But for me, with EFT and mirror work, they became extremely effective. And so looking at myself eye to eye, "You're so beautiful, you can do this, you have the
Mm,
courage," and just really speaking life into myself. And then my EFT tapping was a huge part of my journey, and that really allowed me to come into my body and to acknowledge the negative belief or the fear or the feeling that was coming up and then clear that and then anchor into the new positive belief that I wanted to instill within me. And through all of this work consistently over the last couple of years, everything has begun to shift. And I say consistently because I think oftentimes we want quick results. We live in a society where we want the instant gratification, right? Like we can order things on Amazon and have them the next day. It's like it's instilled in us. But what's really important on this inner work journey and self discovery journey is patience and showing up each and every day, even when you don't feel like it, and giving yourself that compassion and doing it over and over again.
Yeah, again, wow, you make some really great points. So I want to just put the EFT to the side for a second, but I do want to validate that yes, those words, right? It is consistent. And I think at any age, right, whether you're in your 30s, your 50s, your 60s, it's the consistency, it is the small things where you show up every day. And the long haul, right? It's a long, this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? I mean, again, so many great points about instant gratification and quick fixes. And I think sometimes, social media can make it seem like that. The 7 tips for this and the 10 tips for that, and these quick, easy steps. But it isn't easy, right? It isn't easy. It isn't easy. And
No.
it takes
And I
time. Yeah. Go ahead.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, I always say this to people that I've worked with. It's like if you spent 15, 20, 30 years abandoning yourself or living as a version of you that's not true, give yourself that same amount of patience to change your life, right? It's not this overnight process. And I think social media does almost give you that sense of, okay, we can change this really quickly. And some things you can change quickly, but other things do take a lot of time and consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So well said. I do want to just tell all the audience listeners who aren't familiar with EFT, tell them a little bit what that is, and yeah, share a little bit if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it dates back all the way to ancient Chinese medicine. And for anybody that isn't familiar with it, I like to describe it as acupuncture, but without the needles. And so essentially, it's a blend of somatic and cognitive therapy. And what it does is it helps to move the energy through the body. So it's emotional freedom technique. We're freeing the emotions. We're not getting rid of the emotion. We're not getting rid of the fear. And I think that's important to say that because I've seen people talk about EFT and they're like, just release the fear. And that's not what this is. But it's actually just acknowledging and identifying where it lives in the body and then tapping on the meridians or the acupressure points to then stimulate that energy. And it sends a signal to the amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for processing fear and stress. And so when you're tapping and you're affirming, you're sending a signal letting your brain know, I am safe. And so it's a really beautiful practice to help you, release some of those anxious thoughts or move them through.
Mhm. I love that, and I thank you so much for saying that that it's not kind of like a what was the word you used? Like there's not you're not getting rid of anything, right? You're not
Mm-mm.
like it is a moving through, it's a working through, it's a moving through. Like I like to imagine these feelings, emotions, unhelpful beliefs, almost like weather patterns, right? They're weather patterns.
Yes.
We just have to sit with and move through and work with. But there's
Yes.
no, I want people to hear this. This is really important. There's no getting rid of. And we don't want to get rid of, right? Because some of
No.
the things actually are very important, but they're just a little misguided. So you're resonating. What are you thinking? What's going
Yes, because there's so many people that say, "Okay, just regulate your nervous system and like you want to feel good." But that's not what this is about. It's expanding your capacity to be able to hold more of all of the emotions. And I don't believe there's any such thing as a bad emotion because your sadness, your grief, they're all teaching you something. And when you can feel your sadness on a deep level, you can also feel your happiness on a deep level. And so you don't wanna get rid of anything. You wanna be able to get really good at feeling your emotions.
Beautiful. And I feel going back to that addiction lens, I think, there is a strong part. I mean, everyone talks about recovery and they
Mhm,
stop this, stop that, quit this, but they don't often talk about the emotional component of recovery and
mhm,
recovery from anything. Addiction, it could be trauma, it could be childhood
mhm.
abuse, right? There's such an emotional component. And I think this really gets to that, right? How do you
Yeah.
recover from emotionally from some of these things that happen in life?
Gosh, well, I will say when I was drinking and using substances, I was numbing a lot of my emotions. Like I was repressing emotions for 29 years of my life. And as a little girl, like I mentioned earlier, I had big emotions. I threw temper tantrums and I had so much to say, but I couldn't express myself. And I was always shut down when I was trying to express. And so, again, I learned little by little, it's not safe to be emotional. And I had an abusive relationship when I was 22 that constantly told me to shut up and, you're too vulnerable and like stop being so sensitive. And so, again, little by little, I would repress these emotions. And so my way of coping with it was drinking and substances. And so when I was recovering and I realized, oh my gosh, I actually need to feel my emotions, it was really scary because I didn't know how to feel the pain and the sadness and the grief. It just wasn't something I ever sat with. I would numb and run away. And so by allowing myself to sit with the emotions and to allow them to be present and not make them mean anything about me, changed so much because I allowed myself to realize, like, wait a minute, my emotions are teachers. And it's actually beautiful to feel my emotions. And it's actually allowing me to get deeper within myself. And when I had that realization, and I, of course, had the tools like EFT tapping, I was able to move these through and it didn't consume me anymore. And so I was able to feel it, I was able to move it through, and then I could continue with my day and get back to what I was doing. But again, it was like just that big realization of, wait a minute, my emotions aren't a bad thing. Because for most of my life, that's what I thought. I'm like, I can't cry. I can't show this part of me. But when I actually allowed myself to do that, it allowed me to build deeper relationship with myself and with people in my life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautifully put and such an important point. And as you're talking, I'm thinking this journey of discovery, right, can be done at any age. You can be in your 30s, you
Mhm.
can be in your 40s, you can be in your 60s,
Yeah.
right? There is no age limit to this kind of discovery, this kind of work. And I would encourage listeners, please, if you're struggling or you're blocked or you're kind of living small, get in, like get some help. What might you recommend for people that are listening and they're just thinking, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so like me. I'd really like to work on that." What are some things you might recommend, Sophia?
Absolutely. I would say first and foremost is community. Start to look for places where other people are on a similar path or journey. Because right now in your life, you may feel a little bit isolated, like I did. You may not have someone that you can go to that will really understand you on a deep level. So start to look for maybe it's an in person community, maybe it's an online community, and just start to really surround yourself by people that are on a similar path because it's going to open up so much for you. You're going to realize, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in this. And there are other people that resonate, and there are other people that have gone through similar experiences. And when you're also in a community of people that have been through similar things, you're more likely to raise your hand. You will feel safer to be more vulnerable and to share your experience. And that will really set you on this path of self discovery. I would say the next thing is to really start to get curious, like treat your life as an experiment and start to try out new things. I'm a big fan of trial and error. So even if you don't know, put yourself out there. Go try a pottery class. Start painting. My mom is 64 now and she just picked up painting as a hobby and like fell head over heels in love with it. And so it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter your age. You can always pick up something new and you don't know unless you try. So I would say start to get curious about things and reconnect to things you used to love doing as a little girl, as a child, and see how the things click and resonate with you now. And then third, I would say really set aside time to hear your own voice. That is so, so, so important. I set aside at least an hour, sometimes more per day, where I drop into meditation, I do my EFT, I write in my journal, whatever that is for you. And you don't need to follow the 10-step plans and all the things you see on social media. Pick the things that make you feel like the best version of yourself. And if that means walking outside for 10 to 20 minutes, then that's what that is. But carve out that time every single day where you're not on your phone and you're not at work and you're not getting bombarded by a million thoughts and just listen to what comes through because honestly, the most beautiful inspiration, ideas, thoughts come when you are not constantly distracted. So I would say start with those 3 things because little by little, you're going to start to notice what brings you life, what excites you, what lights you up. And then you can start to kind of follow those little beautiful nudges and intuitive knowings, and it will lead you on a beautiful path back to yourself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put my hand on my heart, take a breath.
Mhm.
That is just beautiful. Such
Mhm.
beautiful, wise words. Yes, 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 yes. All of that. So important.
Mhm.
Especially just taking some time just to get quiet, right? Just get quiet. Even 5 minutes.
Yes.
Notice what comes up. Right?
Mhm.
Image, sensation in the body. And I love the message around curiosity. So,
Mhm.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
quick question. What are you currently working through right now, and how are you caring for yourself?
Oh, this is a good one. So, actually, most recently, I've been in a little bit of a pivot in my own business. And I was working through that feeling of imposter syndrome for a moment. It was a feeling of, okay, this is a growth edge for me. And when I felt the fear come up, I knew that I needed to have the courage to take that action because on the other side of the fear would be the growth that I was looking for. And so I just realized, okay, this is really asking me to really step into this leadership role and really share my thoughts and be unfiltered and really own my unique gifts and perspectives. And so while I was doing that, I was also leaning very heavily into my rituals. So for me, it's again like my EFT, my meditations, my strength training at the gym, my walks outside, and being in nature. And for me, it was a lot of self compassion. Again, like this is a big thing in my life is it's okay. You're worthy and deserving of all of the things that you desire and constantly noticing when the self-doubt and the comparison would start to come up and just sitting with the feelings and like honoring them and not needing them to again go away, right? And then continuing to feel them and then take the action regardless of the fear. Because in the past, fear would dictate the way that I would show up in my life. I would hide, I would constrict, I would get small, and I wouldn't take the action. But now, with where I'm at in my life and having all of these beautiful resources, I know that fear is a green light. It's not a stop sign. It's like the big green light of, okay, this is really scary, but I know that I have to do this in order to get to where I want to go. So that's currently what I'm navigating, but it's been a really, really incredible journey.
That's so well put. And I love the conversation or the shout out to fear, right? Fear is not a stoplight, it's a green light. It
Mhm.
means that you're on the edge of something, you're about, right? So push through the discomfort. Fear is just a feeling,
Yes.
not like you said, it's not it can feel like a stoplight, but it is you work with it just like everything else. So
Yes.
such a great conversation, such a great conversation. Anything else you'd like to kind of share or add that you feel is important today?
Hmm. I would just say if there's something that's on your hearts and you have a burning desire to share your gifts with the world, or there's a story that you want to tell, there's a reason it's there. I'm a
Mhm.
big, big, big believer that if there's something on your heart, you are the person that's been chosen to share your magic and your brilliance with the world and really start to get curious and lean into that because the world needs more of us sharing our authentic truth. We need more people sharing their gifts and their brilliance and their humanness, right? Like, especially with social media and the rise of AI and everything that's happening in the world, we need more stories and we need more of you. So, if you feel the call, definitely answer it because there's something beautiful waiting for you.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you if they want to connect, reach out? Where can they find you, Sophia?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Sophia Graniela, which is my full name. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. You can also listen to my podcast. It's called Her Journey Home, and it's unfiltered conversations for the women in their 30s. So, this is where we really talk about the raw, the real, messy middle, the in betweens, the conversations that usually go left unsaid. And I those are pretty much my 2 biggest platforms. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I'll leave those there, and if you are interested in sharing your voice and telling your story, reach out to me because I would absolutely love to connect with you.
Fantastic. Today is just such an enlightful, light, warm, wise
Mm.
conversation. I'm just so thankful to spend a few minutes with you today. So thank you really so much.
Thank you, Kate. This was such a beautiful conversation, and I'm so excited for everyone that listened.
And everybody check out the show notes and definitely listen to the podcast. There's some great conversations. So thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great conversation, right? Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me today on the Living Big Mindfully podcast. If you found something helpful or meaningful in today's episode, I would love your support. As a solo creator, I'm a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, pulling all the buttons and levers, bringing this show to life. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a friend of the show with a small monthly donation. You can find the support button in the show notes. And if that's not right for you right now, no worries. There are other simple ways you can support me. Share your favorite episode with a friend, or take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And remember, as I step away from social media, the best way to stay connected is at livingbigmindfully.com. Here you can sign up for Thrive and Shine, my occasional newsletter, which is filled with reflections, resources, and of course, all new episodes designed to inspire and support you. And while you're there, please download your free Aging Better Toolkit. This is another great no-cost resource. And finally, thank you again. Thank you for supporting me and supporting yourself and supporting more people in their quest to live longer, stronger, more intentional lives. All right, until next time, take care. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and/or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.